That's nice of you. Thank you. We hope that you like that as much as we do. Obviously, that's an impressionistic look at DePauw, but we think that our students do a very good job of capturing the spirit and enthusiasm that comprises our community. I'm Madeleine Eagon, and it's my very great privilege to serve as Vice President for Admission and Financial Aid at DePauw, and I welcome you again to our program here this evening. The strength of this program, we think, is your opportunity to hear from, first of all, the president of DePauw, and also then to explore many aspects of our community. A number of alumni, faculty, students, coaches, and staff are here to share their views and respond to your questions a little later in the program. And let me ask, will members of our DePauw family please stand and be recognized by the guests? Please stand. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here this evening. Let me take a moment to outline how the program will play out this evening and share some thoughts with you before I introduce President Bottoms. Following his comments, we're going to spend about 45 minutes giving you the opportunity to talk informally in small groups. You'll notice these signs around the room. You will have the chance to talk about academic engagement with members of our faculty, learn about student opportunities, residence life, fraternities and sororities, and the first year program with student services staff. You can also learn about our exemplary honors programs, honor scholar, management fellows, media fellows, and science research fellows. Have information about information technology and instructional technology at DePauw. You'll hear from members of the faculty in the School of Music, and also many of our coaches are here, anxious to talk with you about intercollegiate athletics. So we'll encourage you to move from group to group at that time so that you have the chance to learn more about all of the areas that pique your interest and have the chance to ask as many questions as you possibly can and get them answered as we're all here this evening to serve as a resource for you. For those of you who haven't completed your card yet, not to worry, plenty of time, but you will want to give it either to me or one of the other members of the admissions staff who's here this evening, and they'll be sure to get your card into the basket for the drawing. It is a great time to be at DePauw University, an exceptional time to be there as a student, and also a terrific time to be there, frankly, as an employee. President Bottoms led the successful Campaign for DePauw, Leadership for a New Century, which concluded in the year 2000 with $374 million raised. As a result of our financial success, DePauw has hired additional faculty, constructed new state-of-the-art buildings, and renovated existing structures, and gained recognition as a national liberal arts college. Applications for admission to DePauw have climbed to record levels, and the university, now more selective and with a stronger academic profile than at any time in its history, has become a top choice for more of America's best students, not just those of you who live close to us and are our near neighbors in Indianapolis. DePauw University truly is an institution of increasing national significance. But you might be thinking to yourselves as you're sitting here this evening, well, what does the financial success and enhancement to the campus, what will those mean to me as a student? So let me talk about our key areas of investment and the things that are most representative of our pride in the academic program at DePauw. First of all, we've made a very significant investment in our faculty. First of all, we've hired a lot more of them. 4 years ago, we had 166 faculty, and this year when school opened, we have 222. Our faculty-to-student ratio is 1 to 10, and I would remind you that all of our courses are taught by faculty members. We don't utilize teaching assistants in our courses at DePauw. We have emphasized faculty development and also invested in teaching and in scholarship. For example, in the year 2001, 66% of DePauw faculty members published books, book chapters, articles, or made presentations at regional, national, and international conferences. 14 books were published by our faculty in 2001, and 6 so far in 2002. And that includes Professor Dennis Trinkle's 9th book on Internet resources for the teaching of history, and Professor Trinkle is here with us this evening. Foundation and government grants to support academic programs and faculty research for the first 9 months of 2002 total $1.2 million. These include 7 National Science Foundation grants, 2 Mellon grants, 2 Toshiba Foundation grants, and 1 Freeman grant. These awards validate the significance and quality of our faculty and faculty-student research at DePauw. Students are engaged in research projects that are published, often in conjunction with faculty members, and that is powerful evidence of their intellectual commitment when they apply to graduate school. We also have some major technology initiatives at DePauw, funded in part by a $20 million grant of distinction from the Lilly Endowment. We've launched a new program of information technology work stops that are called START, that's an acronym, open to all students, which include online training and certifications. This ensures that our graduates now have a potent combination of problem-solving and tech skills that will serve them well in graduate school, in their professional careers, and throughout their lives. We've introduced an Information Technology Associates program that features on-campus apprenticeships and both on- and off-campus internships on web design, instructional support, music instructional technology, computing technical support, and digital video. More than half of the classrooms at DePauw will be equipped for multimedia and web-based presentations by next fall, and we're currently piloting wireless internet access campus-wide. In terms of student life, we're continuing our highly successful DePauw Year One program, which is comprised of several important aspects that have truly, I think, enhanced the experience that our first-year students have when they come to us at DePauw. To begin with, their underpinning is an academic seminar called the First Year Seminar. These seminars are typically between 12 and 14 students, taught by a faculty member in more than 50 courses across our curriculum, so it's not just one course taught by multiple faculty members. And another important feature that ensures a good academic adjustment is that the professor of that course serves as each student in the class's academic advisor. So obviously, from the very beginning at DePauw, our students have a very small class where there'll be a strong emphasis on classroom discussion and also writing to help students make that big leap from high school academic level work to the quality that is expected at DePauw. In addition, we have an outstanding orientation program that is really the foundation of which is upper class student mentors and our residence life staff, who again are helping students as they're making the social as well as academic transition from high school and home to college and a much more independent life. And as part of our orientation, there are 3 key themes that we emphasize with our students that are actually played out through their entire first year and all of their experience at DePauw. And these include asking students to take responsibility for their actions, asking them to respect others, and asking them to respect themselves. We've expanded residential options as we increase the housing choices offered to our students. In addition to recently renovated residence halls, apartments, theme houses, our fraternities and sororities, this summer we added 9 duplexes and purchased additional apartments and houses to provide more independent living options for our upper class students. We've completed the first phase of our $36 million renovation and technology additions to the Julian Mathematics and Science Center, and the 361 Center there has just hosted its first information technology symposium that was entitled Beyond E, After the Shakeout, The Real Revolution. This fall we opened our new Peeler Art Center, a state-of-the-art space optimal for the teaching, creation, and presentation of art, which was designed for us by internationally acclaimed architect Carlos Jimenez. Our new indoor tennis and track center, named by the U.S. Tennis Association as an outstanding tennis facility of 2002, will host this spring the 2003 NCAA Division III Men's and Women's Indoor Track and Field Championships. DePauw was recently ranked first nationally for our percentage of students studying abroad to fulfill graduation requirements. And our School of Music faculty, gifted musicians and dedicated teachers, offer exceptional preparation, as you saw this evening through Professor Zimmerman, exceptional preparation for vocal and instrumental careers. We have more than 100 ensemble and recital performances each year, and students not majoring in music are welcome to participate, and in fact about 1/3 of our student body will have involvement in the School of Music. Our new Dean of the School of Music, Dr. Amy Barber, is also here with us this evening, and we thank her. The 2002 Putnam County Relay for Life, which was co-chaired by DePauw students, last spring raised $125,000 to fund cancer research. Based upon the success of the Putnam County Relay, our relay is actually a candidate for a national ranking as the National Heart of the Relay Award. And finally, the Hartman Center for Civic Education and Leadership offers students firsthand opportunities to explore the many responsibilities of citizenship in a complex post-industrial society. DePauw University is committed to equipping our students with the skills they need to understand and act upon the civic and social responsibilities that will accompany their professional and personal lives. We are excited that the investments that we have made and continue to make result in a richer academic challenge and also multifaceted social experiences for our students. DePauw's emphasis on intellectual excellence and discourse in the classroom, combined with active learning experiences through internships and service learning programs, help our students prepare for more productive and what we hope will be very fulfilling lives. We are further pleased that there is external recognition for our academic investment and quality, as recognized by our ongoing ranking as one of U.S. News & World Report's top-tier national liberal arts colleges. It is now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Robert Bottoms, the president of DePauw University. Dr. Bottoms received his bachelor's degree at Birmingham Southern College, a Bachelor of Divinity degree from Emory University, and his doctorate at Vanderbilt University. Dr. Bottoms assumed the presidency at DePauw in 1986 and has completed his 16th year in an era where the average tenure for college presidents is fewer than 6 years. In recognition of his outstanding leadership and distinguished record of innovation, just last month, the Chronicle of Higher Education noted President Bottoms' staying power and success. Dr. Bottoms has served as a member and leader of numerous educational organizations, including the National Association of Independent Colleges and Universities, the National Association of Schools and Colleges of the United Methodist Church, the Great Lakes Colleges Association, the Japan Foundation, and the American Center for International Leadership. Dr. Bottoms has written articles on education, finance, and development issues, including opinion pieces for the New York Times, the Chicago Tribune, and our own Indianapolis Star. Dr. Bottoms currently serves on the board of directors for the Joyce Foundation in Chicago, the Posse Foundation in New York City, Women in Government in Washington, D.C., and Seabury Seminary, also in Chicago. In addition to his external roles, Dr. Bottoms is actively involved with students as exemplified by the leadership course that he team teaches. His colleagues in this endeavor include distinguished faculty members, as well as retired Congressman Lee Hamilton, a DePauw graduate. One of Dr. Bottoms' most significant achievements is making DePauw's faculty, staff, and student body more diverse. We are fully committed to a university community that embraces geographic, socioeconomic, and racial diversity as we prepare our students for a global workforce. He's a dynamic leader who embodies all that we offer our students. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Robert Bottoms.
It is a privilege to be here and see so many of you interested in DePauw. As you can tell from Ms. Eagon's comments, we're very pleased with ourselves. We think we have a lot to offer. And so rather than simply talk more about some of our attributes, I'd really like to do, as I've done in various other admission seasons, and I'd like to talk to the parents who are here as a former parent of college students, and I would like to talk to the prospective students and share some of what, not just I've learned as a college president, I really want to talk to you about what I've learned as a parent and what I've learned watching our two children go through the admissions process, successfully completing their process, being accepted where they wanted to go, graduating in 4 years, and now they're both gainfully employed. And I think we've learned something in watching them, and so that's really the tact I would like to take. What have we learned? There are a lot of choices. You know you have a lot of choices. And as you make those, I'd like to ask you to focus on two questions. The first is not so much where you want to go to school, but what kind of community do you want to live in? And the second one, what do you want to be doing 5 years from now, assuming you make the right decision and you graduate in 4 years? Well, what kind of community do you want to live in? One of our children went to a school of more than 10,000. One of our children went to a school of about 2,100, the same size of DePauw. And I think what they wanted is what you want. I mean, don't you really want to go to school with students who are bright? That's why we're so pleased with the numbers that Madeleine is able to report. We have very bright students at DePauw, and statistically, at least in terms of SAT scores and class rank and all that, our students are getting brighter every year. Don't you want to be in a community where your fellow students come from a broad geographical base? That's really what's behind the 35 states and the 9 foreign countries. Don't you really want to be in a community that is economically diverse? We're really pleased because of the Holton gift and the Rector gift and some of those things that we can say, if you apply to DePauw and you're accepted and you really want to be part of our community, we may not be the least expensive place you could look at, but we can make it affordable for you to come. And don't you want it to be ethnically diverse? We've worked very hard, as Ms. Eagon said, over the past several years. We have 30 minority faculty in place at DePauw. Our goal is to have 20% of the student body minority. We're about 15% now. So what does all that mean? Our children are 32 and 28. They have worked in Washington, D.C., Cleveland, Ohio, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., and Nashville, Tennessee, after growing up in Greencastle. And it just so happens most of their colleagues in these different places were either Indian, Asian, or African American. Now, don't you want to be in a community that will expose you enough to difference that when you graduate and you can work anywhere in the country you want to go, that you have familiarity with people who are not just like you? I can tell you as a parent, I have found that to be very, very helpful. You want to be with bright people, but I hope you also want to be diverse with diverse people. I don't know how it is in your life, but I just never learned much from people who were just like me. And so diversity is often a misunderstood term. Some people equate it with political correctness, all that. I'm telling you, as a parent, in watching our children grow and mature, there's an educational need for diversity. I hope you want to come into a community with quality faculty. Every school you look at, every school, if you hear the president or the dean of admissions, the vice president for admissions, I promise you one thing he or she will say. They'll say, we have a quality faculty. That's because there's so many high-quality, high-caliber educators in the country. How do we measure quality at DePauw? Part of our measurement is what Madeleine meant when she said, if you come into our community, we have one faculty member for every 10 students. Think about how good, as many colleges there are in the country, think about how good a science faculty has to be to win an $850,000 grant from the National Science Foundation. As president of the institution, the awarding of that grant, the money meant a lot to the faculty, okay? But the outside validation amidst all the competition is an indication that our faculty is as good as we say. Now, what does all this mean on the personal level? It means if you choose to be a member of our community, you'd be more likely to have the experience our son had than our daughter had. Our son went to the smaller of the two schools. You won't have any large lecture halls at DePauw. We had one and we tore it down in the former Julian Science and Math Center. I pinched myself earlier in the term when I was complaining to Marcia McKelligan, who's the chair of our philosophy department. She and I team teach a course every fall or every spring. And I said, this is the largest class we've ever had. It's really going to be hard on us. She said, yes, we never should let 20 students in. Because usually we've limited it to 14 to 20. What kind of community do you want to live in? The large school, small school issue is a very important one. Ms. Eagon mentioned several of the schools I had attended. I actually attended a couple of others she didn't mention that I was not graduated from. It's just part of the educational process. I went to 5 institutions, 2 large ones and 3 small ones. And I can tell you, as I think back, and I do every admission season, on my experience as a student, and I was a professional student for 9 years, any faculty member I can think of now who had an influence on my life, I met them in a small class and developed the kind of relationships our faculty do develop with their students. So when you hear things like a 10-to-1 student-faculty ratio, what does that mean? It really does mean some very practical things. I had the experience, I mentioned Dr. McCelligan last Saturday. Those people in the room who know me well, meaning the people who work at DePauw, know that I wouldn't say I'm not organized. I just have a lot on my mind. And I forget things. And so I was in the office and I was trying to prepare for class, Monday's class, and I needed something that I didn't have, an answer that I didn't have. So I called Marcia on the telephone. I called her home. And her husband said, you know, she's not here. She's in the office. So I called over to the office and I said, I'm surprised to see her in the office on Saturday. She said, well, I'm writing recommendations for students for graduate school and for graduate fellowships. Now, how do I relate that to the experience of our daughter who was in the large school? When she was about to graduate, and then through the first summer when she was in her job search, her dad, the college president, said, you need to get some recommendations from the faculty you know the best and the people who know you the best. It was a very hard thing for her to do. She had enjoyed her experience, okay. But she was in a school where she was an English major. The English department was large enough that during her 4-year trek through the English major, she was never with one professor very many times. She was generally in large classes. And the bottom line was, while she was graduating with a very good education, which she enjoyed thoroughly, and even works in admissions for this institution as a volunteer, okay? When it was time to get recommendations, she really didn't know anybody well enough that she could ask them to recommend her. It makes a difference what kind of community you choose to be in. You can receive, as our daughter did, a very fine education in large institutions. But deciding what kind of community you want to be in is an important choice. So I know you want to be with bright students, you want to be with good faculty. I suppose you'd like to be in up-to-date facilities. You ought to just visit our campus. See our new art building. The genesis of that art building is probably a story that you need to hear, because the donor for the art building I have worked with for a decade, trying to get him to give us some money. And I tried everything. He is the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, very successful. I talked about scholarships. I talked about our management center. I talked about all the things we do that might relate to his career. And when the word leaked out that we needed an art building, and in fact we wanted to build one, just to show you how donors are brighter than askers sometimes, he came to me and said, how do you plan to fund that building? I said, well, we're going to have to find the gifts. That's the DePauw way, right? All the alumni in the room know that's true. And he said, I think I could help you with the art building. And that began conversations. And what I learned was, even though he's listed in Forbes magazine as very successful and dump-to-dump-to-dump, and you would know the name of his company if I mentioned it, we've not publicly announced his name yet. We'll do that Friday. What he said was, I'm interested in the art building because I learned about art at DePauw. And it's become a major interest in my life. And if I hadn't gone to a small place, I'd like for you to have an art building so other students can have the same experience that I had. You got to walk through our $36 million GU Science and Math building. Think about the Lilly grant we had that was mentioned. We're using technology all across the curriculum. When we say statistical things like we're in the top 10% of the schools in the country as rated by Yahoo magazine, in terms of dealing with technology. I hope as you think about your college decision, you think what's behind that statistic. For the parents in the room, I think our young people are needing to master technology today in some of the ways that educators told us when we were in school that we needed to master foreign languages. Learning technology, learning to work in groups. And technology, as we are learning to use it, and Dennis can tell you all about how he uses it in history. Bob Hirschberger could tell you about how he uses it in developing his interactive textbook to learn to speak Spanish. When I had a Spanish class, you know, we had the old earphones, and the only person I ever heard speaking Spanish was the teacher. And in looking back, she probably wasn't very good. But through the use of technology, you can instantly hear the dialects, native speakers, 16 different areas of the world speaking Spanish. Technology does a lot to help you teach traditional liberal arts. I've seen it happen in our class, the class Ms. Eagon mentioned that I've taught for several years. I'm not a big user of technology myself, but we do old traditional things like divide the students up and have them give a report. We just had the report on President Clinton's leadership out of the David Gergen book in class last Monday. I used chalk. Students used PowerPoint with their computer, with images of President Clinton, with cartoons about his presidency, with all the different kinds of things they could bring. And what did that mean to our class? It was much more lively than it was 2 years ago before the ITAP students started working with other students and faculty. So, what kind of community you want to join? One that is stressing technology will be helpful. I imagine you probably want to live in a good place too. We spent $11 million over the last 3 years on our dormitories. We have the new duplexes that Madeleine mentioned. We have sorority and fraternity houses. We have a lot of housing options at DePauw. But I bet, in spite of all the things I've had to say, you also, you may have, if you're the prospective student and not the parent, you also would like to be in a community where there are extracurricular activities too. We're very proud of our athletic staff who are here and our whole athletic program. There are 395 schools in Division III, 395. We were 14th last year in terms of the quality of our athletic program as measured in the Sears Cup, meaning all across men's and women's sports. Our women's golf coach was Coach of the Year. Our women's basketball coach was National Coach of the Year. Our men's basketball coach was the Conference Coach of the Year. If you're not interested in athletics, our students are very involved in volunteer service. Over 1,500 of our students volunteered in some aspect of service last year, whether it was Habitat for Humanity or tutoring students in Greencastle, or going on one of the winter term trips this year to Ecuador, Ghana, Jamaica, or Paraguay. Some students come as first-year students and go immediately to work with one of the newspapers, with the newspaper or the radio station. They both won national awards. Some of you will pick up within the next month and read, I bet, Jim Stewart, our DePauw alumnus, DePauw trustee's new book, Heart of a Soldier, about a man, Rick Riscola, who helped rescue some people from the Trade Center and then chose to go back in and lost his life. Jim would tell you if he was here, he got his first start in journalism working for the DePauw newspaper as a first-year student. What kind of community you want to be in? You can be in our community if you want to get involved from the first year. And the last two things, and I should wrap up, are these. I mentioned our children. You know, one of the things, as you can tell sort of the way I talk funny, Gwen and I grew up in Birmingham. And even though we've lived in Indiana since 1978, the South is still very much a part of our lives. And one of the things we used to do growing up in Birmingham, we used to In Birmingham language, we used to like to have people drop by the house. We like to have interesting people drop by the house. But we have a lot of interesting people drop by DePauw. I was pleased last year and really taken aback when former Prime Minister John Major came into a luncheon meeting where we were hosting members of our class before he was to speak to the whole campus that evening, takes off his coat, throws it over a chair, and said, well, what do you want to talk about? And this was not long after September 11, and to have the former Prime Minister talking up to date across the table, and it's a quality experience. We have some nice people drop by. We had Bob Gates drop by from the CIA, and last spring David McCullough, probably the premier biographer in America, talking about his work on John Adams and Harry Truman. This fall we've had Harry Belafonte commenting on race relations not only in America but in the world. The symposium last Saturday, Ray Kurzweil, who may be the preeminent inventor and spokesperson for the role technology will have in our lives. And somebody, if you don't know those two names, now the parents know who Harry Belafonte is. But if the students know those two names, we also had another fellow drop by the house. The head basketball coach, the men's basketball program at Duke, Coach Krzyzewski. And I mentioned that in terms of having interesting people drop by. He was part of our lecture series because when people drop by DePauw, you do get to meet them. And after he gave his lecture to a Kresge auditorium that was filled, we invited him to stay over for the night. In fact, to get his honorarium, we required him to stay over for the night and meet with our men's and women's basketball team the next day to sort of get them off on a good year and improve on their record of last year, where the women were only third in the country and the men were in the final 8. We like to have people drop by the house. And a lot of interesting people drop by Greencastle. Now, the very last thing I have to say is a question for you and a comment for the parents. But I think I've said this every admission season because I've not yet gotten over the shock of what I'm about to describe. Where do you want to be in 5 years? Because what I'm about to describe may be one of the really distinctive features of DePauw. I've already mentioned that each of our children had a very good college experience. I mean, they really did. They liked it. They made a good choice for them, just as you need to make a good choice for yourselves. Now, what I want to say to the parents is, when our first went off to college, David, even his dad kind of got tears in his eyes in the garage when Mom was going to take him off to school. And when our daughter went off, he's, see you Thanksgiving. You know, you learn a lot as they get older. But they both had the same experience, remarkably parallel. They both majored in English. They both enjoyed their college experience. They both had 4 wonderful years. And they both did what neither their mom nor their dad intended. After 4 years, they came home. And spent some rather anxious weeks, in one case, months, looking for a job. I said I've never quite gotten over that. I mean, we knew something would work sooner or later. You know, when your child comes home after graduating from college and they stay 2 months, they're as anxious to leave as you are for them to leave. But I couldn't help as a parent and as president of DePauw to compare their experience, as much as they enjoyed it, with the experiences that our students have. If they had chosen to come to DePauw, by the time they were graduated, they could have had perhaps as many as 3 winter term internships, maybe a semester-long internship, some of the summer internships, now some of the technology internships. They could have had a lot of experience. They made a lot of difference when they were entering the job market. Not that just they would look better because of their resume, but they would have had a better idea what they wanted to do because they could have tested it out. If you want a painful experience with your children, it's to talk with them in their senior year or right after graduation and say, what do you want to do? And they say, I don't have any idea. Well, what kind of community do you want to be in? Where do you want to be in 5 years? A lot of schools have a lot of answers. Some will be appropriate for you, some won't. DePauw will be appropriate for you, some of you, and maybe not for all of you. Think about the kind of community you want to be in. Think about whether or where you want to be in 5 years. Come over and look us over and see how we match up. We're just delighted to have you be interested in us. Thank you.
Now that you've had the chance to hear us talk to you a little bit about DePauw, this is the part of the program where you get to stand up and move around the room. So let me remind you, alumni, you'll be meeting in the room next door to us, just out around through that hall. Then our faculty is here, information technology, including the ITAP program. The honors programs are here. Our School of Music and people interested in many aspects of student life up here, so all in the front. And then athletics, where the sign is right in the back. We're actually going to have you go out in the hall because we have so many camps. So the people interested in intercollegiate athletics, you'll just be meeting right outside in the foyer. So why don't you get up, maybe refresh your cup of coffee, find your groups, move around, and we'll call you back together for the drawing.